This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview. Well, joining us today is Andrew Bell, the CEO of Red Rock Resources. Thank you for your time. Andrew, how are you?
I'm well. I'm very happy to be talking to you again.
Well, indeed, we're going to catch up on a few things, but first of all, the news today from the company regarding Burkina Faso. There, you've got a partnership that you've agreed with Riverstone Resources here on the gold operation. So could you please just perhaps introduce this piece of news to us and what it means?
Well, the people there are people we know very well. And so there's a high level of trust between us. And we said, okay, let's go in, and they'll bring their equipment in and their people and their expertise. And we'll put a bit of money in, which we've itemized in the announcement. And we will, as you have to do with alluvial, we look over the whole area and we'll do some large-scale tests in order to establish the grade variation and where we get the best grades. And in the course of those tests, of course, we have to process stuff. Everyone knows that with diamonds, you have to do 10,000 tons as your basic test minimum. Everyone knows, I think, but slightly less well, that with alluvial, you have to test quite a lot in order to just to know what you have there. Any gold you produce in the course of that test work, of course, you can sell. And we'll be starting off doing that at the same time as we make sure that we have all the right permits and all the right equipment to scale up.
Okay, so this will really kickstart, if you like, the operations for extracting gold at the project.
Yes. I mean, we have got people with us now who are production experts at this, who've done all this before. I won't say, I was joking that we better not say that we have 2 centuries of gold experience. Otherwise, everyone will think the whole team is terribly old. But it's probably true. Between 150 and 200 years of experience, even experience in Africa doing this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. People, if you combine all the different people, and yes, they know what they're doing, and some of them worked in Burkina Faso before, and we are very, very lucky because we said that we wanted early cash flow. This ticks that box. Mm-hmm. We said we tried to do it without dilution. I think. This is going to do that. We need to show that we can monetize assets, and I think, again, we can say that this is doing that. We have shown that we can do joint ventures. I think that is a box that's ticked. We haven't given away some of the general upside, either in the country or in the project. This is an alluvial joint venture, which is very focused on that. Of course, if it goes well, then probably it will lead on to more generalized cooperation. And so we can do it on a very short time frame, which shows, again, we can act fast. So there's no reason why everyone wouldn't be very pleased with it, particularly because we're managing to get into production without a heavy cash drain on ourselves, because the value of the equipment that's being brought in by our partner is fantastic.
Indeed. So let's just think about that a bit more then. So there's very little cash outlay to Red Rock. I think, is it in the RNS, 150 to 200,000 would be the commitment from Red Rock. So then,
from here, yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So then what does that mean in terms of how the operation will actually work? Who's going to be the main sort of operator? Is it going to be Riverstone, and how will the profits be, or spoils, let's say, be divided?
Well, look, we start off with a license. That's a very important thing. We will be putting some money in, and we have a general cooperation. It's another thing. They will be bringing in by ship, and some of the more delicate items by plane, the equipment. But I would have thought that the eventual outcome, the eventual split, it will not be worse than 50-50 under any circumstances.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. Well, are you thinking of? I'm just trying to get an idea of perhaps the potential. Yeah. Has the agreement been? It still needs more detail fleshing out, does it?
We don't need to have an agreement. I mean, these people are trusting us. They're bringing in their equipment. on the basis of the fact that we work together in different places, do things together. We own the license. If we were to turn around to them and say, thank you very much, you've done some jolly useful work here, we've extracted some gold, now bugger off, then that would be unfair to them, but we could do it. Now, obviously, we're not going to. And because we're dealing with a private business here, and one we know, it's very much a handshake, person to person basis. We're dealing with the key people there on the basis that we trust them, they trust us. And that gives us a lot of flexibility going forward. But of course, with public companies or people that don't know each other well, there's always a difficulty of reaching an agreement because each side is too anxious and too untrusting of the other. But here, as you can see, we have nothing to lose by trusting.
Yes. So it gets you started basically on the extraction of gold there and early cash flows, as you say. In terms of
I think there are three things they bring. First of all, is just the equipment which they already have and isn't being used, so they might as well use it. And if it didn't work where we are, then they could move it on to one of their other projects in Africa. And I know which ones they could potentially take it to. Secondly, what they provide is they provide the access at the top level in the government. And of course, that's quite difficult to get to those people because there have been one or two coups. So not everyone has that access and ability to do that. And the third thing is just the expertise of the individuals concerned.
And in terms of thinking of timelines, Andrew, I noticed in the RNS it talked about a due diligence trip has been scheduled for early March, and a team will visit the site there, the geologists and engineers, to start that initial preparation, and then the equipment arriving within 6 to 8 weeks. So is that sort of the timeline we're looking at here, and getting into hopefully some extraction, within, let's say, two months?
I think that in parallel, while this machinery and equipment is on the high seas, we would be preparing everything, like the ponds, like some buildings, like security fences, and so on. And of course, we need to have a couple of boreholes. Now, I have a question mark on that. I don't know how long it takes to get that done. I'd assume that it's fairly fast. But what we're looking for is a timeline where, when the equipment arrives, it's almost a matter of plugging it in. We could start very rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see, because you only need one item, as you know, to be subject to delay, and it takes a little bit longer. So I'm not going to say in 8 or 9 weeks we could be in operation, but I'm going to say that it's we have an ambitious timetable, and we're going to work very fast to get things working.
Okay, and just an update on lithium in Zimbabwe, if we can, Andrew. What's going on here?
Well, the conditions in China are still, the main customer, are still poor. Were we exporting 6% spodumene, which we're not, then the notional price would be 909 at the moment. My information's about a day old, but it comes from the very top in China. And you would only be able to actually get $840. Unless you wanted to get the 909, in which case they'd make you wait 3 months until they had processed and sold the product. So at the moment, in order to sell something straight away, you'd only be getting 840. Take from that about 3% sales commission. You can see you're down to a little over $800. Now that, given that it's going to take $100 plus to get to the coast, $100 plus to ship, that you're going to have royalties, which in the case of our royalty, of course, is much less, because we're talking about 3% at the moment. But if you had 6%, you'd be 170, 180. You can see that it's 350 plus. To take something from the gate to the customer, and that means if you net back from, say, 820, you're getting a price of a little over 400. Nobody's going to make money at that price. People are going to be in the soup to $200, $250 a ton. Therefore, we are keeping our material in store free in Zimbabwe. And as soon as market conditions in China change, we will have it on the high seas going over to China to sell. Now, the last day or two, there's been a contango in China, this spodumene price. And that means that, the indications are that there's going to be a sharp rise in price now that the Chinese New Year is over. So everything we do is geared to that, to having the material arrive in China at the right time when we can get a proper price. But we're not out of that business. We're just traders. We don't have a lot of capital employed. We don't have a lot of capital committed. We can, and as long as we don't move it out of Zimbabwe, it's costing us nothing to store. So yes, we'll be getting cash flow from that, as we said, and we could take it over, and for a slight loss, we could sell it in China tomorrow. But it's not in our interest to do that if we just wait a little bit. And so the cash flow will come from that, but it could be that the cash flow from gold in Burkina Faso overtakes it.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. And finally, on the DRC, Andrew, with the arbitration there, any updates on this? Yes,
people, everyone's now in position post the election. It's been, a long process. A lot of the ministers, for example, they stood as MPs, and then they had to make a decision by a certain date, which they did, whether they wanted to be MPs or ministers, because you can't be both. And if they're told that they're not going to be reappointed, then they opt for being MPs. So there's a lot of jockeying for position. Clearly, when we are dealing with people, we want to be dealing with the people who are going to continue to be there, not the people who are going to leave a day or two later. And so there was a natural process after the election, longer than we expected, it's fair to say, where all of this settled down. And even now, the new administration has not been appointed. There's a very strong international interest in making sure that it doesn't escalate. And so I think it'll just be a rumbling on in the East, as it has been for a considerable period, with occasional sort of flare-ups, and then things go back to normal. But it is, luckily, it's very far away from anywhere where we were involved. So it doesn't really affect us directly. But in the terms of the politics, just recently, the preoccupation of people in Kinshasa, it's taken a lot of their bandwidth. So this has undoubtedly had a slight effect in delaying our resolution. But our resolution is very close.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that update, Andrew Bell, the CEO there of Red Rock Resources.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stopboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.